Good evening, guys. Good evening, ladies. Welcome. Yes, it's live chat with Andy. Yes, we're live. We're here, and I've just got an email, probably telling me I'm live. Here, no shit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here. There you go. Right, so tonight what have we got on the agenda? Right, well the first thing on the agenda is the BBC. Right, and the licence. Right, so the BBC, so Andy Burnham and his sidekicks have approved, I can't remember her name, but one of his sidekicks, a woman, I can't remember her name, have approved the BBC's plans, from what I believe, to the BBC's plans to ask people to pay the licence fee or contribute towards it because they watch streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. Now, I think we should all say a fond farewell to them services, because once the BBC tell you you've got to pay for it, regardless, even though they're not British companies, they're American companies, I believe. Once the BBC tell you you've got to charge, that you've got to pay, I think everybody in Britain that subscribes to them will cancel it. I don't have a Netflix account. My daughter Laura, she told me that once, if she gets to a letter saying she's got to pay for it, then she'll just cancel a lot. And I think everybody will follow suit, and I don't blame them. Why should you have to pay twice for something? You know, it's a bit of shit, really. You know, you have to put, they're not happy with the cake, they want the crumbs as well. So, I don't pay a TV licence, I don't fucking watch TV. The only thing I use a TV for is a monitor, and that's it. Basically, that's it. TV licence can knock on my door anytime they want. They'll just get told no, and the door shut in their face. One tried it actually when Courtney first moved in. One knocked on her door, and he asked who I asked him what he wanted, and he asked who I was, and I told him my mind is up. I said, "Where are you from?" He says, "TV licensing." I said, "In that case, mind your own business." Not telling you. Hello, Julie, honey. Hello, honey. Nice to see you on Love. It's always a pleasure. Yeah. So, do you subscribe to? Hello, Clarence. Good evening, sir. Do you subscribe to Netflix, Julie, or any of the other services I aforementioned, previously mentioned even? I wonder how many people do. There's got to be a lot, and I mean I don't, but I don't subscribe to them, but because there's nothing on them for me. I don't watch Disney because I'm not a 10-year-old kid. I don't watch Netflix because there's nothing really there for me. I don't watch Amazon Prime because I can't stand Amazon as a company. I worked for them once, and they treat their workers like cunts. They treat them like shit. Who's that?
Me.
Oh.
Yeah, I need your memory card.
Yeah, can you come over here and do that?
What?
I need you. Go on, do it.
No.
Do it.
No.
You can't have the card unless you do it.
I need your memory card thingy.
Right.
Now, can I have your memory card adaptable?
Yeah, you didn't quite do it right because you did it a different way.
I don't care.
I
don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, go in the workshop.
Yeah.
We doing another cup of tea?
No.
I'm not going to say it on here what you are.
Where is it?
Yeah, are you going to cancel Netflix and everything if you have to pay for it?
Yeah, I'm not paying Netflix what I already pay them on top of a TV licence.
No, I don't blame you. No one will they?
No.
No. It's in the workshop, Laura.
I'll be cancelling everything because they'll add it onto every single thing, so that'll be extra money added onto Netflix, Disney Plus and the rest of it. It's not happening.
And it's not fair.
I can barely afford it.
Yeah, it's plugged in the front of the computer. Well, in the top, it's got a little red light or a little blue light on it. Have you got it? Right, make sure it comes back. Right. Right.
No, because if they do that, because it won't just be the one, they'll add it onto your bill for your Netflix, they'll add it onto your bill for your Disney Plus, for your Amazon Prime, and it's too... Netflix are already putting, Disney Plus are already constantly putting the bloody bill up, not adding TV licence to it.
Well, that's it, you see. You know. I'll see you later, Flower. Yeah, so there we go, you see. Oh, Clarence said hello. She's gone, Clarence. I haven't got Netflix or anything like that, but haven't got broadband, but like that, haven't got broadband. Well, how are you managing to come on here? You must have some sort of broadband. If you're managing to come on here, what do you have? Mobile phone data? Because mobile phone data is still a form of broadband. Well, it is broadband. I know what you're saying. You don't have a home connection. You're using your phone. I nearly swallowed my own venom. Then you're using your phone. I know what you're saying, Julie. Yeah, you don't actually have a router in your house like a lot of us have. I've got internet on phone. Though, but don't subscribe. Right. Yeah, I've got the same. I've got internet on my phone, but yeah, smartphone. Yeah, I've got mobile data, but I never use it. But I've got it. You know, I don't subscribe as such, but it comes as part of me. It's added to me bill. I mean, you know, it's added to me bill, but I don't subscribe, which means I don't have a phone from the company who you know, I get me phone from Vodafone, and I don't get broadband from. I don't actually have a phone from them. The phone I've got is my own personal phone, which is paid for. I got it off Laura. What I do, I get Laura's hand-me-downs. When she upgrades, then I have the phone that I get the phone off her that she previously had, and she always gives me the phone for nothing. And then what I do, I normally do a deal with Jay, where I trade my other phone with Jay for something that he might have that I want, and you know, I do it that way. That way, you know, Laura upgrades her phone. She gives her old one to me. I upgrade my phone, and Jay upgrades his phone because he gets my cast-offs. So that's how we do it, guys. I mean, it's you know, I won't have a phone contract. You know, I just won't. And I mean, I could sell my old phone on eBay, on Marketplace. But have you ever tried selling phones on Marketplace? All the scammers come out the woodwork. I tried selling. I sold an iPhone 6 once, and somebody complained. I showed it the person working before I put my SIM card in it, and I let them make a telephone call to who they wanted on my SIM card, and then they sent me a message asking for half the money back because it didn't work properly. I just sent them a message. Listen, it worked okay when you made a call on it. I said, so don't mither me. I said, basically, it's sold as seen. You know, do it. And, you know, get on with it. And I just never bothered after that. Luckily, they never had my address. It wouldn't have mattered if they had. But I have Netflix, don't pay BBC. Well, well, it won't apply to you, will it? It'll only apply to us poor bastards in the UK. You know, but Netflix, you've just heard what Laura said. Laura will cancel it, and a lot of people will do the same thing. I reckon everybody in the UK that doesn't want to pay a TV licence and they've got Netflix and other streaming services so that they don't have to pay, so they can still got something to watch. Everybody will cancel it, guys. I'm telling you that now. I mean, I don't have these services anyway. I don't have Netflix. I don't have Amazon Prime. I don't have Disney Plus because, well, I'm not a 10-year-old, but I don't have Disney Plus. I don't have any of that. All I have really, guys, is YouTube. And I watch the odd reel on. I watch a few reels on Facebook. What are they gonna do? Move the goalposts and say if you're streaming, finally freedom from the BBC. I mean, the BBC needs fucking blowing up. It fucking does. It needs shutting down. It needs fucking destroying. It's a fucking dinosaur. It needs getting rid of. No one fucking wants... The only people who want the BBC are the fucking dickheads, the sad fuckers that watch EastEnders. They're the only fuckers who want BBC, the sad fuckers who watch that shit. Because it ain't available anywhere else. Because it's a BBC programme. And it's shit. It was shit from day one and it's still shit. The BBC can't even tell the truth with the fucking news. Why do you think Donald Trump's fucking suing them? And Cliff Richard sued them and all. And I don't fucking blame these guys. The BBC, the fucking police. Cliff Richard sued the police and he sued the BBC. Because they went and raided the police went and raided his home while he was in Portugal on holiday. Or he might live there, I don't know. But, he might have a second home there. I think he's got a second home there, hasn't he? Anyway, he was in Portugal on holiday or doing something. And while he was away, the police went and raided his house because some arsehole said that he fucked about with him when he was fucking 15. It turned out to be a load of bollocks. He hadn't. Anyway, but they went and raided his house and they made a phone call to the BBC saying that they were going, so the BBC turned up. Now that is condemning somebody before they've even been to court. That's condemning somebody. So Cliff Richard quite rightly sued the police and he sued the BBC. Now Donald Trump's suing the BBC. With a bit of luck, Donald Trump will fucking sue him for enough that'll put him out of fucking business. Because they need stopping. Because, the TV licence isn't fair. It's never been fair. And it's never going to be fair. What it actually is, it's an unfair tax that the British population is being forced to pay. The sooner the British people wake up and smell the fucking coffee, the sooner, the fucking better. If you pay a TV licence, guys, stop goddamn paying it. Just phone them up and say you no longer need a licence and tell them why you no longer need a licence. And they say they may send an enforcement officer. You don't have to let an enforcement officer in. And, you don't have to let them in. All you do, you open your door, you say, no thank you, and shut the door. When you just say, who are you, what do you want? Oh, we're from Capita TV licensing. Well, they don't even say they're from Capita, they just say they're from TV licensing, with TV licensing written on the jacket or their shirt. You just say, oh, sorry, no thanks, and shut the door. You don't have to be impolite to them, you don't have to be rude to them, you just say no thanks, because all they are is salespersons. They've got no legal powers or any other kind of powers, legal or not, whatsoever. They cannot just come to your home and expect to walk in. Can you just stop paying the next bill? Well, yes, you can. You just phone up TV licensing. You just phone up TV licensing, and you just say, you just explain that you no longer need a TV license because you don't watch television, and you don't watch any television whatsoever. You don't watch nothing. Don't tell them you watch any streaming services. Just keep it safe and say you don't watch absolutely anything. All you do is listen to the radio, because radio is free. The radio isn't covered. Radio isn't covered by the TV license, because that's what I told them. Because I said to them, "Do I not need it for the radio?" She says, "No, radio's free." I said, "Right." I said, "Because I listen to the radio, which I do. When I get up on the morning, the first thing I do when I get out of bed, I scratch my bollocks, go for a piss, make myself have a wash. Obviously, I wasn't going to wash my hands, I've just scratched my bollocks. Well, no, I don't mean I've just scratched my bollocks now, I mean when I first wake up. I get out of bed, I scratch my nuts, I fucking go in the bathroom, have a piss, have a fucking strip wash, and then I make myself a cup of fucking tea. I sit in my armchair over there, put the radio on, and I listen to the radio for a couple of hours. Why do I have to talk to anyone? Just don't send them any more money. Well, if you can do that, just stop paying it. But if you speak to a lot of people pay. I don't know whether you have it in America, Clarence, but here in the UK we have a system called direct debit, which works. I pay my rent with direct debit, and I think there's one or two other things I pay with direct debit, and it works. It's a good system when it works, which it does most of the time. I pay my rent with it, and they take me rent on the day. On the day my money goes in, they take me rent, so my rent's paid. I don't have to worry about the roof over me head. That's cool. I'm happy with that. Anyway, basically, if you tell them that you don't need a license, then the TV license people cancel the direct debit, and they stop taking money out of your account. Now, if you just cancel the direct debit, they can continue to try and take it. So for the cost of a phone call, which is, I think it's a free call, but just take 5 minutes out of your life to phone them up and say, "Look, I don't need a TV license." Tell them why you don't need a TV license. I don't watch television. It's simple, and they'll take your name off the list. They'll tell you may get visited by an enforcement officer. You just say, "Okay, fair enough, no worries," and they'll cancel the direct debit, and we'll stop taking the money. In fact, when I cancelled my TV licence in 2000 and it was when Laura left here, about 2016 or something like that, 2015 or something like that. But I even got a refund off them. Honestly, guys, I got a cheque through. The postal woman said on the phone, she says, "You'll get a refund, Mr. Andy." I said, "Oh, nice one." And I got a £50-odd refund because I'd been paying my licence, and I got a £50-odd refund because when Laura left here, I got rid of Sky. I cancelled Sky, and I got rid of my landline telephone. I didn't need it anymore. I got everything I didn't need or didn't want. I got rid of, and it was included Sky. I unplugged the aerial from the back of my television, and I cut the aerial where it comes in through the window, so that if anybody did come and I did let them in, then they couldn't say, right, there was no TV in here. I had a projector on my ceiling, and all it was connected to was a computer media centre. Well, how much does the licence cost? It's about £180-odd. About £185 or something fucking daft. It's heading towards £200. Yeah, £180. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, I knew it was around that region. Yeah, nearly £200 for a year for a licence. And that's a lot. That's a big chunk out of some people's budget. It would be a big chunk out of my fucking budget. I mean, we're left with very little to fatten on as it is. Without these cunts taking fucking nearly 200 quid off us. You know, okay, you can pay it in fucking monthly instalments. Why should you have to pay it at all? Tell them. Just say, look, I don't have a television. I don't watch the fucking thing. I don't go near it. I listen to the radio. Or I sit there and play with myself. Tell them anything. You know. Tell them anything you want. Just don't tell them you got a telly. I mean, I've got 2 tellies. I've got fucking one in the front room there, which I watch movies on, but off from an hard drive, and I've got another telly in my workshop that I use as a monitor, and it's solely as a monitor for the computer. My televisions I don't watch live television. You know. But I just don't. You know, I watch everything second hand. I mean, you can't even watch iPlayer. You can't even watch BBC iPlayer without a license, and that's fucking non-live content. iPlayer, it's fucking, you know, it's non-live. Most of it is anyway, and you got to have a license to watch that because simply it belongs to the fucking BBC. Now, stop paying the fucking license, guys. You know, fucking listen to some fucking sound sage advice. Stop paying the fucking license. Stop giving the fucking BBC a license to print fucking money for content that they produce, which is crap. I mean, if you genuinely watch the BBC and you genuinely love EastEnders, I can't fucking understand why. It's the most miserable programme I've ever made. You know, everybody, they're all miserable in it. And even people from London even own up to that. And it's made in London. It's the most miserable programme ever made. You know. But, you know, if you really must, then yeah, pay. If you use the BBC's services, then fair enough, pay for the service. I'm not saying watch television illegally. What I'm saying is if you don't use the services like I don't, then don't pay for it. Tell them to go and get rubbed. You know, if they send an enforcement officer, as they like to call him, which is really a fucking salesman. I mean, I've had about fucking 30 odd fucking letters threatening to send a so-called enforcement officer, but none have ever turned up. And I'll tell you something else, guys. TV detector vans, they were fake. They were fake when they were first fucking rolled out in the 1920s, I think. The first one was rolled out to detect people listening to the radio. But TV detector vans, you know, detector vans of any description, have always been fake. There's never been anything in them except just all they are is a white van with TV licensing detector van painted on the side. That's all they are. What about Constipation Street? Yeah, that's on the ITV. That's on what we used to call Granada. They now call it ITV1. But that's actually made in Manchester. It's made by Granada what used to be Granada Studios. That's an independent television production. So yeah, you know, really you should be able to watch that because that's paid for by commercials. But if you're watching it as it's being live, as it's being broadcast, if you're watching it as it's being broadcast, then no, you need a TV license. We grew up with Emmerdale. Ooh, used to be Emmerdale Farm. It did, didn't it? Dominated by a family called the Sugdens. Yeah, my dad used to watch all that crap, and he used to watch fucking Crossroads. Who remembers fucking Crossroads? Fucking, who remembers that fucking pile of shite? I'll tell you what I used to like, guys. We're going into talking about television here, aren't we? I used to like Crown Court. I used to watch Crown Court with my Auntie Winnie. I used to love Crown Court. I thought it was fucking brilliant, Crown Court. But Crown Court was made at was made at Granada Studios. Because there is no place called Fulchester. and they're certainly not a full Chester Crown Court. And the cases, a lot of people used to think the cases were real, but they weren't. The cases, the cases were all fictional. They used to tell you that, you know, the cases were fictional, but people still used to believe it, though they were real cases. They weren't. But it was good entertainment. You know, it was good television. It was done really well. I'll tell you who was in a lot of them. That guy who played Victor Meldrew, and he also played the Doctor in Only When I Laugh, and he's been in a few other things. Richard whatever, I can't remember his last name, one of you guys will. You know, I used to like watching Crown Court. It used to start on a Monday, and each case lasted for 3 days, did it? You know, you used to get the verdict on a Wednesday. You used to get the start of the case on a Monday. It'd carry on the Tuesday, and then you get the verdict. And the actual jury were actually real members of the public. You know, they got real members of the public in. You know, for the jury. The jury weren't actors, but everybody else was an actor. You know, but the jury weren't. They were, and it even told you that, you know, that the jury was selected from members of the public. They probably just went on the street and said, "Do you want to earn yourself a tenner or something like that?" You know. The Good Life with Felicity Kendall. Yeah. You know, I mean, they don't even make... I mean, to be honest, guys, let's move back onto the BBC. The BBC don't even make good television anymore. The last things that they made that I actually enjoyed, and I mean I really, really, really did enjoy them. The last things they didn't even make them, but the last things they put on that I actually really, really enjoyed was 2 series. One was called Life on Mars, and the other one was called Ashes to Ashes. Me and Laura used to sit and watch them every week, because Laura lived there, and me and Laura used to sit and watch them every week. And I missed a few of the early episodes of Life on Mars, and so that I could catch up, because it was still being run on the BBC. So, and I was paying my licence back then. So in order to catch up, instead of fucking about with iPlayer and fucking about, I bought the DVD box set, and I got it from Morrison's one week. We were doing our shopping, and I threw it in the shopping trolley. It was about fucking 20 something quid. Round about that fucking region, 15, 20 something quid. I threw it in my shopping trolley and brought it home. And I watched up until where they were broadcasting it, and then stopped watching it then. And me and Laura used to watch it every week it was on. You know, yeah, they were brilliant, weren't they? You know, I'll tell you what, that Keeley Hawes fucking as dehydrates. She didn't give a fucking... I'll tell you what, she turned that Gene Hunt into a pussy, didn't she? He fucking turned into butter in her hands, didn't he? Fucking big hard Gene Hunt, the Genie. He turned into fucking butter in her hands, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. You know, fucking... well, they left that series open-ended, but never followed through. You know, they never did another one after that. You know, and me and Laura were talking about it the other day. You know, and Laura said, made a valid point. She said, well, they couldn't do another one because all the actors that made it what it was had all gone to the afterlife. At the end of Ashes to Ashes, they all went in the railway arms, didn't they? You know, which was Gene Hunt's idea of heaven, because Gene Hunt was... He was sort of God on earth, if you like. He was God in the world that he lived in. That kind of thing, I believe. But yeah, they all went into the railway arms afterwards, and then it cuts to his office, where he sat there looking for a new car, because the Quattro got blown up, didn't it? The Quattro got blown up, so he was looking through a Mercedes brochure for another car, and a bloke come in, didn't he? Another dead copper come in, going on, where's my iPhone and that, and Gene Hunt went out and says, yeah pal, a word in your shell like, and that's where it went off. So they left it open-ended, so they could easily assemble, another team and bring Philip Glenister back into it. Cause he's even said he'd do it. It's no good bringing the other guys in because they've already been purified, haven't they? They got purified at the end of Ashes to Ashes. So, there's no point bringing them in because then it'll turn it into what happened to Bobby Ewing, wouldn't it? Remember Dallas? Everybody caught Dallas was an infection. Everybody caught that. I fucking didn't. I think I was immune. But I know they brought Bobby Ewing back. That was another pile of BBC shit, wasn't it? Dallas. Another pile of BBC shit. Dallas. Fucking... I used to... Mind you, that being said, I did like JR. I thought JR was funny. On the odd occasions, I copped a bit of it. I did, because my mum used to watch it, but never when my dad was in. Because my dad couldn't fucking stand it, he never had it on. And I used to have a television in my bedroom with a fucking slot meter on the back. And if my sister wanted to go and watch it, well, my mum and my sister used to go and watch it. They had to put 50 pence in they had to put 50 pence in to fucking wind a couple of hours on so they could watch it. I had a 22-inch Ferguson colour set in my bedroom, and they used to fucking... They had to put... I got a slot meter off a fucking guy who knew he had a load of them. Fucking television slot meter, I put it on the back. And I used to make sure there was no hours on it when Dallas was on. So they had to run 50p in. And it was locked so they couldn't get the money back. I used to use it as a money box. I used to wait until there was a decent amount in it and then fucking empty the cunt and go and spend it. Oh, I was a fucker back in the day. My dad wouldn't have it. I mean, if my dad weren't in, they could watch it for free, but he always was. So they couldn't watch it because my dad wouldn't. He used to say, I'm not having that shite on in my house. Go somewhere else and watch it. So they used to go upstairs and sit on my bed and watch it in my bedroom. But, because I used to repair tellies, so I always had an half decent telly in my bedroom, and I'm fussy me, I can't settle on anything unless the picture's perfect. The picture's got to be dead right. I even paid to have an extra aerial put up because my dad didn't want me chopping into the fucking TV aerial and taking a link off it, so I phoned an aerial place up and I actually paid to have my own aerial put up into my bedroom so I got a nice clear sharp picture. And I needed a fucking aerial anyway for repairing other people's sets. I used to repair the other set. I used to share the room with my other two brothers, and a vast part of the fucking room was actually taken up by my stuff. And then I said to my dad, then they weren't using the parlour. We moved into an house with a parlour, and I says to my dad, can I have the parlour as my bedroom? He said, what for? I said, then I won't have to hump them bloody big heavy tellies up the stairs, and I won't have to shout you out to give me hand to hump them big heavy tellies up. Yeah, he said, you can. So I ended up moving all my stuff, my bed and everything down into the parlour, and I turned the parlour into my bedroom. And I ran me, because we were in the back bedroom, I just put an extension on and ran my aerial down and drilled a hole in the window frame and fed it through the fucking window, and everything was good. But I used to charge them 50p. They had to run 50p through the fucking meter. Well, not run it through, that put it in. They never got it back. Even my dad said to me, he says, you're a tight bastard, you are. I said, well, let them watch it down here. Oh, fuck that. He said they can pay 50p. I mean, for 50p, you got about 4 hours because you could set them meters. You could. There was a mechanism. You could actually play with the mechanism and set them. It was about you go out 50p for about. You got about 4 hours for 50p, which worked out about fucking. Well, it worked out about fucking 2.5 pence fucking. It worked out about 10.5 pence for fucking out. 10 and a bit pence for fucking per hour, didn't it? It worked out about 10 and a bit pence per hour. They were lucky, you know, that I only got a 50p meter because my mate had some pound coin ones as well. You know, the pound coin had not long come out and he had some pound coin meters. He said, "Do you want a pound coin meter?" I said, "Nah, the 50p one will do." I says, "I can get hold of 50p's quicker." I mean, I could bypass it, you know. If I wanted to watch something, I could just fucking, well, I didn't have to fucking bypass it. I always made sure there was a 50 pence piece. I just used to take the fucking, I used to take the tray out and just run it through a couple of times. If I wanted to watch a film, I just used to run it through a couple of times. So, you know, fucking wind a few hours on. But yeah, fucking, yeah, I think Dallas was on for about an hour, wasn't it? Maybe a bit longer, I can't remember now. But they had to pay to watch it. Because my dad wouldn't have it on the telly in the front room. I mean, my dad ruled the telly in the front room. Even Top of the Pops wasn't allowed. That was another reason why I had my own set in the bedroom. So I could fucking watch Top of the Pops on a Thursday night. Because my dad didn't like pop music. Yeah, I don't know what happened upstairs, then there was a big bang. There we go. But anyway, guys, it's, you know, but getting back to it, right, you know, another thing is in Stockport, if there's any people watching from Stockport, we're having a lot of trouble at the moment in Stockport with the bins. If your bin lid is not closed, they won't empty your bin. If your bin is overfilled, they won't empty your bin. They're scared of getting injured. What about the days when before they had these fucking bin wagons that could automatically load the wheelie bins on? When men used to come round your back and they used to fucking lift your bin up onto their fucking shoulder and fucking, you know, carry it to the bin truck and fucking empty it into the bin wagon. You know, what happened to them days? You know, what about them guys? You know, them guys had fucking grit, they had fucking buckle. They didn't give a fuck about fucking hurting themselves. You know, they had a job to do, and they did the job. And we used to give them a tip at Christmas. You know, we used to tip the bin man, you know, because he'd done such a good job all year round. You know, they used to empty your bins and put them back. Nowadays, they empty your bin and your fucking bin ends up the fucking road. They couldn't organise a fucking a piss up in a brewery. And they won't. Apparently, the council won't empty your bin if the lid's open, broken, or fucking the bin's overflowed. So I left a comment on a social media group called Nextdoor or whatever it's called, and because I was reading about it, and I just put, you know, if they don't empty mine, I'll just empty the cunt in the middle of the road. They'll soon come and fucking shift it. You know, we always tip the bin man. I remember once the bin man came and I left 2 Garrard SP25s around the back garden. I'd got them off a friend of mine who took them out or something. My plans were for building a disco console. I was about 15, 16 at the time. Big plans for somebody who was just learning electronics and didn't really have much. And didn't really have any way of building them apart from the 2 turntables that I got. Anyway, and I left. It was a nice summer, so I just fucking left them out the back and forgot about them. And then I just happened to notice they were fucking missing. And I called the bin man the week after. I says, "Roy," he says, "What?" I said, "You took my 2 Garrard SP25s." He says, "I know." He says, "I took them home." He says, "I thought they were rubbish." I said, "No, they weren't." He said, "Do you want them back?" I said, "Yeah." So he brought them back the following week. He says, "I'll put them on the wagon next week, mate." He said, "I'm sorry about that." He says, "It won't interfere with me tip, will it?" I said, No, my mum will still give you the tip. Because I lived at home, obviously. I said, "You still get your tip." I said, "Cheers, fella." And he did. He come back the next week and he brought them back. We got the same bin man. Used to get a regular bin man. I mean, Same as the rag and bone, you know, we used to get the rag and bone man coming round, and we used to go out and give his apple a horse. Give his horse an apple or a carrot or something. And I used to get the guy who owned I'll read the chat in a second, and I'll read it now. One of the worst things I ever saw in England was fly tipping. But people are gonna fly tip if the council don't empty their bins. I mean, if my black bin's got emptied today, but my bins always generally do. And but if on one occasion they might not, I'll just empty the fucker in the middle of the road, mate. I don't give a fuck, guys. They're paid to do a fucking job. They should fucking do it, whether your fucking lid's up or down. You know, they should fucking do the job. Why can't, if the lid's been blown open, why can't they just lift the lid back up to close it? The fucking lazy, good for nothing bastards. Good for nothing lazy twats. They're too fucking strong for light work. You know, at the end of the day, guys, I might be a bit brutal here, but I don't give a fuck because they are lazy bastards. They won't even close your lid. I mean, if your bin's unsafe and there's and it's really overflowing, then yeah, I can understand that. But, you know, they don't lift the bin onto the fucking machine. They push it into the fucking machine, and then the fucking machine lifts it up and empties it. And then brings it back down again. They just wheel it out of the way and throw the next one in. They don't do any fucking work. It's good money for old rope being a bin man. They don't fucking do any work. All they do is run behind the bin wagon. That's all they do. I mean, it'd probably keep them fit. They should, you know, but not like the old days where the bin man used to come round your back, you know, hoist your bin onto his fucking shoulder and fucking, you know, or onto his back, and fucking run round and throw it into the fucking empty it and give it a good rattle to make sure there was nothing in there, you know, or bang the bottom of it even. And there was none of this. Or the fucking the lids come open or come off, or you know, it's overflowed. The bin man used to just empty your bin. He never argued about it, and that was why we all had a special relationship with the bin man, because they used to fucking empty your bin, unquestionable, and they were reliable, and they were friendly, and they used to get a tip every Christmas. You know, my mum or dad used to give, usually my dad actually, used to give the bin man a couple of pounds. He used to say, my mum was there's a couple of quid, give that to the bin man when he turns up, you know. The week before Christmas, used to give him a Christmas tip. You know, they always did that. But, you know, I wouldn't give them the time of fucking day now. But, and they were getting back to the rag and bone man, I knew the guy. He was called Alan Race. He'll be well gone now. He used to drive a maroon Rolls Royce, and he owned Race's scrapyard in Wythenshawe. And he also owned the rag and bone. He also owned the rag and bone place, the rag and bone company. He owned that as well. And I used to get I used to get fucking car radios off him. You know, I used to get car radios off him. I got fairly pretty pally with him. And I used to get car radio, because I went in, I said to him, I said, can I buy a couple of car radios from you? I'd gone down, my dad asked me to go down to get a part for a car, so I went down. I knew what I was asking for. I knew exactly what I wanted, so I was safe enough to sit down and get it. Anyway, and while I was in there, I just inquired, and he says, you know, he says, why would you want the car radios for? I said, well, I want to learn electronics. I says, and, you know, the best way to experiment is on something that's very cheap. And if I blow it up, it doesn't really matter. He says, here, young lad. And he passed me a couple of car radios, you know, what they call Tommy Two Knobs. Passed me a couple of them. And he said, let me know if you want any more. I said, oh, thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. You know, thank you very much, sir. So anyway, I got back home and my dad said to me, he says, where'd you get the money to buy the car radios? I said, I didn't buy the radios, Dad. He said, well, he said, you didn't steal them, did you? I said, no, Dad. I says, I'm not you. He says, oh, okay. He said, well, where did you get them? I said, I got them off Alan Race at the scrapyard. I forget what my dad had sent me down for. It was a fucking part for a car or something. Well, obviously. I forget what it was. Fucking starter motor or something for an alternator or something like that. I said, no, Dad. I said, I'm not you. Because I'd been with me dad once, and he says to me, he says, wait on the side of the fence. And a fucking alternator for a transit van come flying over the fence, almost hit me up fucking head. You know, and then I heard him shout, he said, get that alternator, he said, put it in the back of Angie Warburton's fucking van, he says. We went down with a guy called Angie Warburton that we knew. He says, put it in the back of Angie's van, he said. Don't know what Angie's first name was, we just called him Angie, I don't think that was his first name. But his son knocked on my door in the early 2000s, you know, his son Carl. And, you know, I know some Warburtons up here, and I know this Carl wasn't related to them. And I said to him, I said, Carl Warburton? He says, yeah. I said, you're not Angie Warburton's lad, are you? He says, I am, yeah, one of them. He said, yeah, I am, yeah. I said, well, fuck me. I said, last time I seen you, you were knee-high to a grasshopper. He says, I know. He says, who are you? I says, Andy. And I told him my last name and everything. I said, we used to live in Old Avenue at number 64. That's right, he says, I remember you now. He said, my dad and your dad were best friends. I said, they were. I said, they used to fuck about with cars. He said, that's right. Yeah, because I remember Adji getting read the Riot Act by the council because he caused an oil slick on the pavement outside his house. I mean, I don't agree with that. If you're going to work on a car, do it cleanly. But Adji just got this oil used to run out of his garden and onto the pavement, and it was horrible, to be honest. Somebody reported him, I don't know who, but somebody did, because he said to me, Dad, he said somebody's fucking shocked us. Anyway, what he did, he stopped the oil running out of the garden, and he cleaned up the mess that he'd made. And they told him he couldn't do any more cars on his garden. He still did, but he took better precautions. How old were you when you realised you liked electric? I was very young. I was about 5. I think I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. What happened was, me and my brother, me and our Jack, we ate our mother's medication. So we ended up in hospital in Boothall Children's Hospital for a few days, about a week or something like that. And while we were in there, we were kept in this room, the two of us, on like bunk beds, one above the other. That wouldn't be the last time I'd see a bed of one above the other. Like when I went to prison. Anyway, so I was getting used to it. It was probably breaking me in. Anyway, and what happened was, we got took to Boothall Children's Hospital in, I think it's in Salford, just on the edge of Salford and Manchester, isn't it? Or it used to be. And it was a really horrible, cold, horrible place, Boothall, and you wouldn't think it would be, given that it was an hospital dedicated for kids. It was Boothall Children's Hospital. Anyway, and I got out of the room that we're in. I managed to escape. And I went on to the main ward. There was nobody in there apart from, well, me and our Jackie. Nobody else in there really apart from me and him. And on the shelf there was an old radio. Well, on the windowsill there was an old radio, and it was a bit too high for me to climb up. So I got a table, and I dragged the table over, and I put a chair on top of the table. Bear in mind I was about 5 or 6. And I put a chair on top of the table, and then I climbed on the table and then up onto the chair, so I could look at this radio. And I turned it round. It had no back on it, and I could see all these little valves glowing. And I just fell in love with it. I thought, oh, that's what I want to do, you know, because I used to think up until that time, I used to think that radio was magic, and I still do believe it is. You know, the magic's never left. I still believe that radio is magic, but I thought it was magic in a different way. I thought there were little people inside the radio, because I'd never seen inside one before. It's the first time I'd ever seen inside one. And when I realised that I was a bit disappointed to find out there wasn't little people inside it, but you know, obviously realism hit me that it was a, you know, I didn't know what any of the parts were called. You know, I just knew that, you know, them parts were needed to make a radio function in a way that a radio is designed to function. And anyway, I got caught by a nurse, and she tore a strip off me. She tore a strip off me. So anyway, when it came time to go home, me auntie Winnie came to collect us, and I said to me auntie Winnie, I said, "See her there?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "She shouted at me, auntie Winnie, for looking at the radio." She said, "Did she?" I said, "Yeah." So my auntie Winnie walked over to her. I'll never forget it. And she said to her, she said, "You shout at my nephew again." She says, "Oh, fucking knock the fuck out of you," she said. "Right, you two, come on." And we got in this ambulance that was put on for us, and we got brought home. And you know, I started looking for bits of fucking radios anywhere I found them. I used to pick them up and bring them home, you know, and mess about with them. And you know, I remember we had this old radiogram, and it was handmade. Somebody made the fucker, but the person who made it didn't have the foresight to put any knobs on the front. They were all on the back. It had a BSI UA14 in it, and you know, and I was always messing about with that. And my dad turned round to my mum. She said, "We're going to come in one day, or could get up one morning and find him dead." You know, he said, "The daft cunt's going to electrocute himself." Keep messing about with stuff like that. But obviously I didn't, and I'm still haven't, and I'm still here, and I hope I never do. But I learnt safety. I got a couple of electric shocks putting my fingers in, I learnt not to do that, and I learnt safety very quickly, and I learnt how to be safe and what to do and what to do, and you know, I just started learning and figuring things out. And when the TV engineer used to come, if the TV went wrong, and the TV engineer used to come, I used to interrogate the TV engineer, you know, and I used to ask him about the equipment he used, and he was more than happy to tell me. And about the fault that was on the television, he was more than happy. They all were. I never found one that was an arsehole. Honestly, guys, I never did. And you know, that was what started me off. That one incident started me off in electronics. Would I have got into electronics if I hadn't gone into hospital for a week? Yeah, probably. But I would have found out a different way. I would have looked at something else, because I was always interested in technology, and I still am. And you know, that'll never go from me. That'll always be there. You know, and when I do repair anything, you know, I do it with the same sort of passion that I had that day when I saw the inside that radio. You know, every challenge, every job is a new. Every repair is a new adventure. You don't know what you're going to find until you take the top off, especially if it belongs to Burnt It Out Matthew. But, you know, you don't know what you're going to find until you get in there and you have a good route, you know. But, you know, I know there might be a few of you missing me on the electronics channel, but, you know, I think, to be honest with you guys and girls, I think that's the best way to go. I think the way I'm doing it now is the best way, is how I should have done it in the first place. And, you know, that's how I was doing it at first. And then I've tried a few different things and nothing's really worked. But we're up to 395 or 396 3,000, sorry. We're up to nearly 4,000 subscribers. 3,095 or 96 or something. Wouldn't it be good if we could get the subscriber count up to 4,000 by the end of the month? I mean, it's only took me 11 years, or thereabouts, you know. I'd have to look at my earliest video to find out, because I set up the YouTube account and I put a couple of videos on there, but I never really did much after that until I come across a guy called the Cobra Man, and I thought he's like me, him, and I liked his attitude, and it sort of inspired me to go and do more. So that's why I do it. Let me just clean these glasses. They've gone foggy as fuck. There we go. Give me a wipe on my shirt. There you go. It's better. You can see me now. My father fired up a ham radio transmitter with glowing tubes. I was hooked. That's how, I think that's how it gets most of us. You know, just things, just, you know, and then, by the way, they're not called tubes, they're called valves. Why do Americans call them tubes and Canadians call them tubes? The rest of the world calls them valves. And even in the service manuals that you guys get, they're still called valves, yet you guys call them tubes. I don't understand that, because they're still referred to as valves in the service manuals that you get in America, like in the Sam's Photo Facts and stuff like that. They're still referred to as valves, because I've watched enough of Shango's Aero 66. He even calls them bulbs. I mean, because they're in a glass tube. No shit. Right. I'm trying to think of a smart ass answer for that, and I will do. Yeah, no shit. You know, I'd never have guessed that, but I'm not going to pick on Americans tonight, Clarence. I'm not going to pick on Americans. I'm having a night off from picking on Americans. I might do that Thursday. But no, but in the service manuals it doesn't say tubes, it says valves. You know, and do you think the Americans do it because they want to be different to everybody else? I mean, do they? I mean, I'm not having a go on anything, but do you think that's the case? It could be, couldn't it? I mean, the guy who invented it, I forget his name, but even he called it the thermonic valve. He didn't call it the thermonic tube. He called it the thermonic valve. Because technically it is a valve. It lets electrons travel. It's a one-way valve. Electrons travel one way but don't come the other way. Yeah. Because it's negative charge, I think it's negative charge electrons meet positive charge electrons. They have sex and they create a load of power, which allows the amplifier to work. Right, so it's all the same shit, really. I mean, the tube valves start with their voltages, which is smart. Yes. The ones in America do, but the American ones do, but the ones we get don't. I mean, an EL84 is not 84 volts. An EL84 is not 84 volts. An EL84 you can put 250 volts up its anode. You can throw 250 volts up its anode with no problems. That's an absolute. I think you can actually throw 300. I'm not sure. I'd have to check, but I definitely know it's 200. I'm sure of it. But and that's a lot of voltage to put into a glass with a bit of metal in it. But when you think of it, a valve is a remarkably beautiful piece of technology. But we're not talking about valves anyway. Let's move on. I'm depleting the conversation that we're going to have on Saturday and Sunday. Let's keep the electronics away from here and talk about other things. Right, come on guys, think of a topic. And I don't mean one with hazelnuts wrapped in milk chocolate and nougat in the middle of it. Let's think of a topic. Yeah, there's been a warehouse explosion, I think it was. Did you hear that one about that fucking bungalow that exploded? There's a gas explosion. I come across it on the news last night on YouTube. It was about a day old when I come across it, and basically, somebody, basically it was a gas explosion, and it blew the fucking thing off the planet. And yet the guy survived. He was airlifted to hospital, and directly it was a gas explosion. I wonder if he'd been messing with his gas meter because he's found it hard to pay his gas bill on account of this fucking government we've got. I think I'm going to vote Reform next time. I'm not voting for Labour, or I'm not voting Conservative. I think I'm going to vote Reform next time. I should start my own political party, shouldn't I? I mean, all it takes is enough followers and the correct agenda. I mean, but, that being said, the British public wouldn't want me anyway. They wouldn't want to elect someone like me. Not because of who I am or what I am. Because the British public love getting shafted. They do, guys. They love being arse-ended every time, and that's why they elect the governments that they do, because they love being shafted, love having their hat nailed on. They love having their hats nailed on by corrupt governments. I mean, look at Andy Burnham. He's a cunt. They all are, and he's made all these promises, whether he fucking sticks to them. I mean, to be honest with you, if he sticks to them, we might change my mind about him, but I doubt it, because I don't think he will. He's like the rest of them. Politicians are like pigeons. You shoot one, another one comes and sits in its place. So what have we covered so far? We've covered quite a bit, really. We've done the TV licence, so, we've got to leave that one alone for a while. But yeah, but on the last note on that, yeah, don't pay your TV licence. Tell them they're getting this, nada, fuck all. And they can't come into your house without your invitation. They're not the police, they're not a government body. They're a private company called Capita, who are contracted by the BBC to collect the TV licence for the BBC. But as soon as the BBC is disbanded, which needs to be done, then the world will be a better place. We could all live without the BBC. I've lived without it for fucking years. I mean, I like to watch the snooker, but I catch up with it on YouTube after the match has been played. I don't mind if I watch a match that's a couple of hours old, as long as I don't know the score. I try my best not to find out the score. Once I see the score, I won't watch the match because I know who's won it. But if it's not a complete match and somebody's in front, then I'll watch after that point, because nobody's won it yet. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, you can't go wrong with telling them to go and get a foot. But yeah, even the BBC News is, you can't rely on that to be truthful and unbiased. We're on 7 o'clock. We're going to get moving shortly. Tube values start with their vault. Yeah, but they don't here in the UK. They don't here in the UK. They fucking, and I mean, an EL84, like I say, an EL84 is, because the heaters are 6.3 volts. The heaters are 6.3, and they are in most of the world anyway. So it could start with a 6. It's only American versions that do that, as far as I know. British valves don't, because we had the EL numbers and UCL and ECC and stuff like that. We had different numbers for different valves, like we had E's, A's, B's, you name it, yeah. Mostly E's. I mean, an EL84 is the same as a UL84. Electrically, the only difference is the heater. The EL84 has a 6.3 volt heater, whereas the UL84 has a 40 volt heater. For about 45 volt heater, thereabouts. So, you know, that's the only difference. But, you know, let's have a look what Clarence is saying. The tube values start with voltages. Their voltage, which is smart. Well, it isn't really. It just shows how thick the Americans are. Because we can look at a valve. It's an EL84. We know the parameters of that valve. You know, we've got reference books that'll tell us. You know, we know the parameters of the valve. When you've done enough of it, you know what the valve is. You know, I mean, yeah, like American radios are some of the most ugliest radios ever made. I mean, they have great big fucking dials on them with big daft numbers. They don't have station names or anything. You know, there's nothing remarkable about them. You know, they're just horrible things. You know, the dials are anyway. The dials are horrible on American radios. And most of them just have a little fucking oblong or a little fucking square. The old stuff just had a little oblong or square with a number in it, which had a bulb behind it so you could see the fucker. Transistors changed the world. Transistors were made to send man to the moon. That's what transistors were manufactured for. But, you know, transistors is not necessarily a better idea. You know, they're not a better idea. I mean, because they discovered that transistors are no good in space. They're too unreliable. That's why the space shuttle has valves in its computers. I remember our TVs in the 70s were smoking sometimes and had to get the repairman out. And they were large, old types, not the flat screen. Yeah, I remember. You know, could used to call them curtain burners, some of them. Especially the Fawn BRC sets. The Fawn BRC sets. The 3000 series especially. Because they had a power supply on the top which had a big fucking mains dropper that used to get red hot, and they used to call them curtain burners. A few sets got that name, curtain burners. Yeah. We were always given replacement. That's it, you see. I mean, we rented a television. Well, back in 1974, my dad bought a big fucking Ferguson, I think it was a 26-inch Ferguson colour set he bought, and he paid a lot of money for it. But he was forever having early colour sets were unreliable. He was forever having the repairman come and repaired it. So we went back to renting a telly because he had to pay the repairman after the 12-month guarantee. He discovered he had to pay the repairman, so we ended up having to rent the television. So we rented the set, and it was only in the mid-80s when he got fed up of renting one and decided to buy one. And what he bought was rubbish. It was a Ferguson TX100, one of the worst, quite possibly the worst television set that Ferguson ever produced. They gave trouble everywhere. You got trouble in the frame stage, you got trouble in the line output stage. The only thing you never got trouble in was the IF or the sound stage. You know, but yeah, the line output stages on them were bad, and the field output, or the frame as some people call it, the correct name is the field output stage. The field output stage used to fail. Line output transistors used to blow like there was no tomorrow. I can't remember if I've ever come across one with a bad line transformer, or as you Americans call it, the flyback transformer. The best Ferguson that was ever made, the best Thorn or BRC television ever made was actually the TX10. The TX10 was a brilliant telly. The only downside was he put a shit tube in it. You know, the picture tube was crap, but they never had a line transformer in those, or a flyback if you like. The voltage was taken from I think the HT was derived from the chopper transformer, if I remember rightly. I'd have to see one to fucking fully remember, but you know, they were good sets. Them TX10s, they were good sets. They reckon that was the set that saved Ferguson, because up until they were taken over by Phone Consumer Electronics, they were actually Ferguson, and they actually stayed as Ferguson. Ferguson had their own, even though they were owned by Thorn, they were actually still the Ferguson TV plant made only Ferguson tellies. You know, basically they just made Ferguson tellies, and so it was still pretty much its own entity, pretty much. And the worst set they ever made, it come out in 1985. It was the TX 86, yeah, 85 it come out. It was the TX 100, the worst set that Ferguson ever made. And the other issue he had with that. The other issue you got with that particular set was, if the frame stage died, the field output stage, if it died, it was driven by a chip. I can't remember the number of the chip, but the manufacturer of the chip stopped making the chip while the television was still being produced. They actually stopped manufacturing the chip while the TV was still in production. So if your chip went down, which it would, if the field output chip died, which it did, and it was going to, if it hadn't already, it was written in stone, then what you had to do, you had to go to the parts place. We used to go to Wizard Distributors, and what you did, you bought the chip, but it come in a bag with a couple of resistors, and you had to change a few resistors. It was called a modification, a field output or frame output modification kit, and you had to put this modification. You couldn't just put the chip in; it wouldn't work. You had to add these resistors or change them, or so I can't remember exactly what. I've never done one, but I've seen them where they've been done. Because I've actually seen the service manual, and the service manual actually the service manual, if I remember rightly, actually had a supplement in there for this modification. You know, so if you had the chip and didn't have the other bits, then by looking through the supplement, you could work out what you needed. I think, hang on, put my glasses on. Just read Julie's. I think we had a Pi Ferguson, and then later on we had Hitachi, Panasonic, LG, Bosch, a variety of TVs, and a Samsung over the years, Andy, and a Samsung. You know, we mainly had Ferguson's because, you know, Ferguson's slogan, Ferguson had a slogan: the best picture of all time, the best sound all round. And that was true until they got to the TX100. Up until the TX100, Ferguson made the television with the best picture. And that was no exaggeration. I mean, up until the TX100, which was a load of crap. I mean, if you're watching a game of snooker on a TX10, you know, you could see the coloured balls. They were vibrant, and they were all the colours were on top of the balls like they should be. But if you were watching them, if you were watching it on the TX100, the colours were just off to one side, so all the balls looked sort of greeny grey, and the colours were just off to one side of the balls. The colour, you know, the colours used to shift, and you know they never got that. They never fixed that problem on the TX100. It was a terrible set, certainly coming out of a place like Ferguson. But I think it was the last set they made before they were sold to the French group Thompson. I think that was the last set they made. And to be honest with you guys, if they were going to make sets like that, then it was probably good they got out of the business of making tellies. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I never thought I'd live to say this, but the tellies we've got now, I mean, LCD tellies when they first came out, they were crap. You know, they couldn't do the colour black properly. You know, blacks didn't look right. You had to sit right in front of them like a zombie. You couldn't sit to one side of them and still watch it because you couldn't fucking see it properly. So you had to sit there like a zombie in front of it. But they've come on in leaps and bounds over the last 10 years. And, you know, they're a big improvement on what they were when they came out. I got an early one. And it didn't rain too long. It was soon gone. You know, but, you know, I still think deep down CRT was as good as it got. And, you know, you could bang the tube and, you know, we had one that fell flat on its face once. And we just lifted it back up. Me and my dad just picked it back up. The dog knocked it over. It was on 4 spindly legs. Fucking big heavy colour set on 4 spindly legs. Nearly crushed the fucking dog. I think that was a 22 inch. You know, UK uses a strange antenna connector. We don't, we use a proper aerial connector, which is on the end of the coax and plugs into the socket. You know, we don't fuck about with F connectors and fucking, just fucking screwing wires to the back of the fucking aerial socket. That's an amateur way of doing it. Yeah. Yeah, you just use the coax and shove it on the back. No, that's the wrong way of doing it. You know, that's the wrong way of doing it. I mean, we have a proper aerial plug on our aerials. Fucking antennas. An antenna's something you find on a bug. Fucking antennas. It's an aerial. On this channel, it's an aerial. Call it what you want anywhere else, but on here, it's an aerial. Anyway. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with our aerial connector. You know, if you want to swap tellies, you don't have to fuck about looking for a screwdriver. You know, to take the fucking coax off. You just unplug the cunting thing. I mean, we've got a lot of things over here that the rest of the world mocks and wishes that but secretly wishes that they had, like the 13 amp plug. You know, we've got the 13 amp plug, which is a 3-pin plug with a built-in fuse, which can be replaced. We're the only country that's got that. No other country, as far as I know, has that. You know, America's the most unsafe country on the planet. They just I've seen their fucking plugs. In fact, my jukebox behind us, that's got some of them plugs in it because it's the power supply is 240 in, and but the rest of it, once it gets to 240 in, it all gets converted to 120, 117 or something, to drive the amplifier and any control modules that thing might have. You know, and that's how it's done. This was, hang on a minute, let's read Julie's comment. Yeah, it's an aerial in this country. There was a time when you went shopping for a new TV and there were so many choices we couldn't decide, but the prices, Andy, had a budget, and that was that. Yeah, well, that's it, you see, that was the same for everything. You know, whether you're buying a television or a box of tea bags, you know, you had a good, you always got a good choice, and you could pick what you wanted. I can remember. Oh, you mean the SCART? Yeah, the SCART was actually a Euro idea, not ours, because no self-respecting Englishman would have ever come up with that. You know, that would never have been a British idea. That was a French idea, I believe. The SCART, the 21-pin SCART plug, I'll give you that, Clarence. Yeah, they were shit. You know, they were shit. I'll give you that, yeah. Yeah, they were shit, those SCART sockets, the SCART plugs and SCART sockets. I can remember, you know, I got a call out, I went to his television, and I got there and the lady says to me, she says, oh, come in, lass, I'm your TV engineer, love. Believe you're having trouble with your video recorder. She says, yeah. She said, the picture said there's no sound and the picture's green. I said, no sound and the picture's green. She says, yes, love. I said, oh, okay. She said, would you like a cup of tea and a biscuit, love? I says, oh, of course I would, love, yeah. I said, I'll just go and have a look while you do that. I said, I'll just go and, you know, I'll look, see what the issue is. Anyway, I pulled the telly from the wall, out the corner, and as I pulled the telly out the corner, the SCART lead just drops out. So anyway, I pushed it back in, switched the television on because it wasn't on, I switched it on, put it on the designated video channel, which is usually fucking 8, and it had AV next to it, because there was a special, I think it was a wideband capacitor, so you didn't get tearing at the top of your picture, and that was that channel was reserved for your video recorder. Oh no, tell a lie, I didn't put it on 8, it was going through the SCART, I put it on AV, sorry. I put it on AV for the SCART socket, and the picture was perfect. The sound was on, but I pushed the tape in. The TV channel came on, and there was sound, and the picture was right on that. And I pushed the tape into it. I used to carry a test tape. I pushed my test tape into it, and it had the test card on my test tape, and that came up. And the picture was beautiful, and she come through with the cup of tea and the biscuits. Oh, she said, you fixed it already, love. I said, I have, love, yeah. She says, do you mind telling me what was wrong with it? I said, no, not at all. I said, but I'm going to make a modification if you don't mind. I used to carry some cable ties, what you Americans call tie wraps. Anyway, I used to carry a packet of cable ties in my bag. And what I did, I made two little holes in the back of a television near the SCART socket. And what I did, I fed a cable tie through, and to support the lead. And what I did, I brought them over the lead, put them over the lead, and pulled them tight so the lead was pressed hard against the back of the television, so it couldn't fall out again. And she says, "What do I owe you?" I says, "Oh, you don't owe me anything, love." I said, "Not even for the cable tie." I said, "It won't fall out again, you know." And that was it. But yeah, the downside to SCART leads, they had an habit of falling out. Yeah, totally agree about buying what you can afford. Well, that's it, you see. I mean, I won't have anything if I can't afford to have it. You know, I mean, you know, as soon as I get weighed in, as soon as I get paid, guys, I'll be honest, as soon as I get me money, the first thing that gets paid is my rent. Second thing that gets paid is my gas and electric. Third thing, my food gets bought for the month. My phone bill gets paid. My money for the broadband gets put aside. And then whatever's left, I can get myself something, if there's anything left. You know, so... yeah, I make sure all my bills are paid. All my food's got. The only thing I buy really daily is bread. I don't even buy milk daily. I buy long life milk. It comes in cartons and it lasts a month. Lasts longer than that even. But, you know, and that's what I buy until you open it. You don't have to refrigerate it because it's pasteurised. So you don't have to open it. So, you know, it's semi-skimmed, but it's pasteurised. So until you open it, I leave it in the hallway. It's in the hallway near the front door where it's always been. And I've never pulled one out and it smelled horrible yet. You know, you don't have to refrigerate it until you fucking open it. Brilliant. Don't know what they fucking put in it, but that being said, if anyone knows, don't tell me, because I like my bowl of cornflakes on the morning. I had a bowl of Weetabix yesterday morning. I've got some shredded wheat, you know. They're like eating bales of hay, but I fucking love them, you know. I can eat 4 of them in one sitting. But yeah, so you know, no, I won't buy anything that I don't feel I can afford to purchase. If I want something and I can't afford it, I'll do without it. You know, it doesn't matter how much I want something. If I can't afford it, I can't have it. You know, it's as simple as that. And my dad taught me a lot of important lessons, and that was one of them. My dad never, ever, ever purchased anything that he couldn't afford. If he couldn't pay cash for it, he didn't want it. He didn't need it enough if he couldn't pay cash. You know, he never bought a car on finance, he always paid cash. I mean, my dad had a good job. He was a long-distance lorry driver. And back in the days when he was doing it, the job paid. You know, he did well. In fact, he did that well, he could even afford to have time off every now and again. You know, he just used to phone the place up. He used to work for a place called M&S Transport in Manchester. Well, it was more Salford than Manchester. And he used to work for them. And they used to... and the guy who owned it was an Asian fella. And my dad was very good friends with him. He got on really well. Because every time he said to me dad, you know, can you do a bit extra? My dad used to say, yeah, no worries. You know, I don't know what the guy's first name was. My dad used to always just called him Munters. Anyway, and he used to say, yeah, no worries, mate, I'll do it. So when my dad earned his money and he wanted to have a couple of weeks off, he just used to drop the wagon down, pick his car up and come home and go in the office. Say, right there, you know, I brought the wagon back. There's the you know, there's the keys. I'm having a couple of weeks off. Are you okay with that? I say, oh yes, Jack, no problem, Jack, it's fine. So my dad would then get into his car and drive home. And we used to love it when my dad had a few weeks off, because he used to do all the cooking. Because our mother couldn't cook for shit. She fucking couldn't cook. You know, she couldn't even boil a toast. You know, I know she was my mother, but she was as thick as shit. She really was. I know you shouldn't speak ill about the dead, but I'm not. I'm telling the truth. She was thicker than a corned beef sandwich. Anyway, but she couldn't cook. I mean, I can cook because I used to watch my dad, and I learnt a lot from my dad. In fact, I had more time for my dad than I ever had for my mother. More time for my dad, you know. And I used to spend a lot of time with my dad. He was as well as being my dad, he was my best friend. You know, we were more like mates than father and son. You know, and can't be a sandwich, sounds great. Yeah, but she was though. She was thick as shit. She was thicker than a corned beef sandwich. My mother, you know, she didn't have a fucking clue where the bear shits in the foot wheat. You know, but you know, my dad. I mean, my dad wasn't technology minded. He grew up in a different world, but you know, he would try and embrace new technology. You know, he never learned how to program the video recorder to record when he was away from the machine. You know, but he didn't have to. You know, he didn't have to. He had me to do that. If he wanted a certain program taping, I used to set them. If I wasn't going to be there, I used to set the machine to do it. And if I accidentally got it wrong and made a mistake, I got the repercussions of that and all. But because back then there was no fucking TV on demand or none of this, what we've got today. I mean, I was saying to Laura once, you know, when I was a kid, if we wanted to watch 2 channels, we had to put 2 sets next to each other. which is true, you know. But nowadays they can, you know, you can pick and choose. It's been like that for a long time. I can remember when we only had 3 channels, fucking A, B and C, as I used to call them. Fucking BBC 1, BBC 2 and fucking Granada. And then in 1982 we got Channel 4. And Channel 4 is actually state-owned, believe it or not. Channel 4 is state-owned, right? And that's a fact, that. And they use advertising for their... They're funded by advertising. That's how they get their revenue, from advertising. So why can't the fucking BBC do it? You know, instead of taking the piss, and they're going to fuck Netflix up and fucking Amazon Prime and fucking Disney Plus, they're going to fuck all them services up. You know, for the people who watch them in the UK, we have 13 channels on our TV, but only 3 or 4 you can receive. Well, our tellies used to have fucking... Some of the tellies had 8 buttons on them. You know, some of the because, you know, the tuning range on the UHF system that we used, you know, the tuning range went from 21 to 69 on the UHF band. I would presume that would be megahertz. Went from 21 megahertz on the UHF band, or something. I'm not sure how they calculated it. Went from 21 to 69. But you let's see if I can remember them, guys. You got BBC 1, which was on 55. You got BBC 2, which was on 60 something, 65 I think, or 62. ITV was on 58 or something, and I can't remember where Channel 4. No, I can't remember where Channel 4 was, but Channel 5 was on 38, which is where you used to retune your video. You used to tune you if you were going in through the RF. You used to tune your video to 38, and to channel 38 or 35. It was one of the. I think it was 35 actually. You used to tune your video to 35, but when Channel 5 came out, you had to retune your video. That's it. You had to retune your video to 38, but not a lot of people knew how to do that. It was a little screw at the back of the machine, on the panel at the on the panel at the aerial, and the lead that goes from the RF lead, the fly lead, the patch lead, if you like, that goes from the VCR, the video recorder, to your television socket. There was a little screw there. Not a lot of people knew that. And on later machines, it was put in a menu. And my old friend Mike, I think he used to charge about 30 quid to go out and do that. You know, to retune people's sets. You know, and I never did it because I couldn't be bothered. You know, I wasn't asked about doing that. You know, but Mike used to do it. I don't even think he charged 30 quid. I think he might have even charged a tenner. I think he just charged his call-out fee. Whatever his call-out fee, that's what he charged. Just to pop in and do it for you. So it was probably about 10 or 15 quid or something like that. You know, for his call-out. But, yeah. I remember that. They were telling you... They were telling you on the fucking adverts for Channel 5 that you have to retune your video recorder, which I thought was a bit of a pain in the ass, because what about people who couldn't do it? They had to pay for somebody to do it. I did a couple for free. People who were newer did theirs for free. And some of the last machines ever made, they actually didn't have a physical adjustment. It was done in software, so you had to go into the video recorder's menu and select settings and select tuner settings and then select RF settings and then adjust and then it give you the option from 21 to 69, and I used to set them at 40. I used to set them at 40 because I thought that was about safe. You could set them pretty, you could set them pretty much anywhere as long as you were away from any other TV channel. But you had to be careful because, the TV channels also had a second harmonic. You could also pick up what looked like the channel but wasn't, and it was very snowy and looked horrible. It was basically a second harmonic, and what you wanted was the channel proper. But they were the good days. They were the good times. A lot of the things I enjoyed. A lot of the things I enjoyed when I was going out repairing televisions. A lot of the things I enjoyed were the areas where I got a real buzz, was meeting people. Sitting and having a brew. I remember once I got called out to go and repair. I didn't get called out. I bumped into a friend of mine with his wife, and his wife says to me, "Could you go and look at this television? Could you go and look at this Amstrad Hi-Fi for a girl called Mandy? She's a friend of ours." I said, "Yeah, of course I can. No sweat." So give me the address. I'll pop round tomorrow, but phone her up and let her know that the engineer's coming. So she said, "Right, we will." So I went. She gave me the address, and I got my stuff ready, and I went round the next day with my record player cleaning stuff. I even took a fresh stylus. I got one before I went. Took a fresh stylus in case it needed it. I knew what cartridge the Amstrad used, in their arms, so I took fresh cartridge, fresh stylus, sorry. I took my tape head cleaning stuff and my switch cleaner, and I got round there, and I said, "My name's Andy, love." I said, "You know Danny and his wife?" She said, "I can't remember Danny's wife's name." She said, "Yeah." I says, she said, "You're allowed to come look at the Hi-Fi?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, come in, love." So anyway, she says to me, she said, "Would you like to, like to sit and chat for a minute, and would you like a brew?" So I said, "Yeah. Yeah, of course I would, yeah." I was there for about 4 hours. And then I said to her, "What's actually wrong with your Hi-Fi?" She said, "Nothing." I said, "Nothing?" She says, "Yeah, nothing wrong with it." She says, "I just wanted some company," she says, "but, different company." And I said, "Oh, right." So I fucking sat there chatting for about 4 hours, and I didn't even get a tool out of the bag. And anyway, as I was going, she says, "What do I owe you?" I said, "Don't owe me anything. I've not done out." "No," she said, "but I've kept you there all day." I said, "Don't worry about it." I had about 4 or 5 cups of tea and mowed my way through half a pack of Bickies. I said, "Oh, don't worry, love." I said, "You're all right." And so I never took nothing off her. You couldn't if you hadn't done the job, could you? Come on. I mean, I got a couple of jobs through Danny. Another one I went to was a family I became very, very good friends with. A couple I became very, very good friends with. And they had a deck of Bradford. We used to call them Deadly Deckers. They had a deck of Bradford and there was no picture. And Danny says to me, he says, "Could you go and have a look at the telly?" He said, "But, he said, could you do it as a favour?" He says, "Could you do it as a favour for me?" He says, "And, I'll bear the brunt of the favour should it ever come up, if it ever comes up." I said, "Yeah, of course I will." So I got round and the girl says to me, her husband was upstairs having a bath or something. He was doing something upstairs, and she says, "We've got no money, She said, "We can't pay you." She says, "Malcolm's having trouble finding work, and, we're getting very little." I said, "Don't worry about it." I says, "I spoke to Danny." She says, "Oh, Danny." I said, "Yeah, So I spoke to Danny, and Danny said that, he'll cover the favour. So I'm doing it as a favour for Danny." So she says, "Oh, okay then." She said, "Would you?" I says, "All I'm going to ask you, love." I said, "Have you got hot water, milk and 2 sugars in a tea bag?" I used to take 2 sugars in my tea then. "Have you got hot water, milk, 2 sugars in a tea bag, in a nice decent sized mug?" She says, "Yes, I can sort that out." I said, "That's all I want then." It was fucking freezing cold and I was gasping for a brew. I've been out most of the morning that particular day, so I was gasping for it. Anyway, and her husband, her boyfriend at the time, come down the stairs, Malcolm. He says, "We can't afford to." I said, "Don't worry." I says, "I've had a word. Danny's had a word with me." I says, "I understand your predicament." He says, "Oh, okay." You know, he said, "Well, if you ever need anything from me," he says, "let me know." Anyway, all that was wrong with the television was the wire had come off the what we call the efficiency diode. The wire had come off the efficiency diode valve, which was a PY. It was a PY 500 back then on colour sets. You're a man, Andy. Hi to everyone. Hello, Karen. Hope you and Jeff are good. I know I do my best. I do my best. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't help somebody out who's in the deeper shit than you are, then what's the world coming to? I mean, you know, it didn't cost me anything apart from a bit of shoe leather. I used to even walk everywhere or cycle, but they didn't live far away, so I walked. You know, I walked it that day, and you know, they didn't even have any carpets on the floor. They were really, really badly off, and I mean badly off. If you'd have burgled them, you'd have had no heart. If you'd have burgled them, you wouldn't have had the heart to take anything. You'd have left them somewhere. You know, anyway, they had this old Decker Bradford, Deadly Deckers we used to call them, and I soldered the wire back onto the efficiency diode, and the picture came on, but it weren't very clever. I mean, the tube was beat up. You know, the tube had seen better days, but I couldn't boost it because I didn't have a tube booster, so I couldn't boost it, and all I could do really was just adjust the guns and stuff on the back of the tube neck. Turn the A1s up a little bit, and play with the focus to improve things. And I got it to a watchable picture, and I got a brew off them, and I became good friends with them. They used to let me use their spare room to repair televisions. You know, and me and Malcolm started selling tellies. Malcolm used to buy them and pay for them. I used to mend them, and we used to sell them and split it. But we did that for about 4 or 5 years. We did well out of it, and it was all done from his spare bedroom and sometimes at my place. You know, but yeah, we did well. But it's nice to help somebody out. It is. It's, you know, I mean, if you can't help somebody out who's less fortunate than you are, then the world's a bad place, guys. It really is. You know, I don't think any of you have noticed, have you? Because nobody's commented on it. Don't think any of you have noticed. I've had my ears lowered. Well, I haven't had my ears lowered, I lowered them myself. But I did it Saturday, so those of you who came in on Sunday, I don't think there was any faces here. I think Karen might have come in, I can't remember. But people just throw TVs away now. Well, that's it. I mean, that's the first thing I saw. Oh, right. There's the fact I've lowered my ears. Yeah, you know, but when all said and done, guys, I mean, if you can't help out a person, even if you don't know them, you know, if you can't help, if you can't help out a person that needs, you know, and they had a little lad running about the place, and a little lad, I think it was called David. You know, they had a young kid running around, and he kept pulling on my shirt while I was mending the television, and she's at it. The girl was called Ida, and she's at it. Leave the master alone, she says, while he fixes our telly. I says, oh, he's all right, love. I says, he's all right. You know, I said, don't worry, he's all right. And, you know, but yeah. But, you know, so, you know, it's nice to help people. I mean, you know, you can do something nice without earning a pound out of it. You know, you can, you know, in the same way you can still earn a pound and still do something good. You know, like any OAP, any old age pensioners, AOPs I went to, I used to charge them a lot less than what I charged somebody else because you just felt sorry for because they were an AOP, you know, they were an old age pensioner. And most of them, to be honest, most of them used to give you a bit more, thinking they were giving you a tip. And the other thing to remember is most AOPs are crafty old devils. They have a fucking money stashed all over the house, you know. But I didn't look at it that way, although I was conscious of that fact. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it the way that I was helping somebody, you know, and but I had this other friend called Audrey, and I went to school with her son called Alan, and she had two sons and they were smackheads. Alan wasn't one of them. She had two sons who were fucking heroin addicts, who were smackheads, and everything she got disappeared. Anyway, she asked me for a video, so what I did, I had a Ferguson 3V22. That was the 3V22. That was it had like keys on it, like people used to call them piano keys. It had keys on it, but it was the deluxe version, which had a still frame and an auto and still tracking button, so you could get rid of a load of the fuzz. And you know, I'll read that in a second, Julie, honey. You know, I'll just tell you the story first. Anyway, and I said to her, I said, I've got one. I said, but, you know, I'm worried about your lad's fucking mate disappearing. You know, I says, you can have it for free, I says, but with friends you can have it for free. Anyway, I says, I don't want that for it off you, I says, but I'd had many a meal there and everything. Really good friend of mine. She was an Irish woman. She was a lovely Irish woman. Anyway, and I says, what I'll do, Audrey, I says what I'll do, I says I'll drop the machine off. I said I'll also give you one of my rental books, because I had a couple of machines out on hire. I says I'll give you one of my rental books. I says, and each week I'll come and mark the book. I said, but I won't take any money off you. And I says to them two fucking gagheads and two smackheads, I turned round and said, let me tell you something. I says, if this machine disappears, I says, you two will fucking disappear. I said, if it disappears, I says, there'll be consequences. I said, so it's up to you two to make sure that it doesn't. And it never did. And I never took a penny off her. I used to go around every week, mark a card and come back out. Have a brew and a chat and come home. But, you know, let me read what Julie just said. Get back to that now and then I'll read what Karen's just said. My dad used to say similar, if you can't help family or friends out when they got nothing, then who can you help? Good, kind, generous man. Absolutely. And, you know, not the same these days. You know what I mean, Karen, yeah. You know, you see, at the end of the day, guys, nowadays, people live with the mentality of, you scratch my back and I'll stick a knife in yours. Sad to say, guys and girls, but it's true. You know, it's true, it's, you know, it's just, people are just not as nice as they used to be. I mean, I think I can count on one hand the amount of people that I can make a phone call or knock on the door, you know, and that you know, fucking, you know, about fucking 40 years ago, I could fucking name fucking about loads. I'd run out of fingers, I'd have to take my shoes and socks off and take my dick out, you know, but, you know, I mean, it's just not what it used to be. I mean, not a lot of people are not being born and growing up with the same values. You know, the sort of, I mean, the people I'm referring to is like my friend Mick, the scrap man. You know, I can knock on Mick's door and ask him for anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But that being said, he can do the same here. You know, the community spirit has gone. Of course it has, Karen. The community spirit's gone and it ain't coming back any day soon. And it's a bloody shame, you know. You know, it really is. It's a bloody shame. I mean, everybody has fences built so you can't look over and talk to them. You know, you don't know. You know, there's people on this crescent I live on. There's people live on this crescent. I don't even know them. You know, I wouldn't know them if they stood up in me soup. I mean, I know Zach next door. I let on to Zach. Kelly over the road. Mike and Amy. And I think that's about it. Oh, Colin and Stuart. I let on to Colin and Stuart. But I'll speak with Colin and Stuart when I see them. But that's about it, guys. Not really anybody else. You know, it's a sad situation, really. That, you know, you live on a fucking place full of people and you barely know anybody, and to be honest with you, it's always been that way, really. You know, it's, you know, so I've lived there for about 27, 28 years or something fucking that. Well, I moved there in 99, so what's that, 26 years, 27 years? You know, 28 years next year, you know, and... you know, fucking, you know, I moved there in 99 and it's always been the same on here. I mean, it's, you know, yeah, it's bad really. You would think, you know, you would think that people, you know, would want to, I mean, people walk past me gate. Oh, and I almost forget, I forgot, didn't I? Courtney upstairs and the lad over the road there lives in the bottom flat over the road, and the people who live above him, I know them. I don't bother with the people that live over the road, live above him, Martin and Teresa, but I know them. Christine's friendly with them. I don't think much of them, but Christine's friendly with them. But I like Kevin. Kevin lives underneath, and Kevin's okay. Kevin's all right. He always has a smile on his face, and you know, a word in his heart, a word in his mouth, you know, to, you know, smile on his face, and, you know, and hello as he walks past. You know, even if you don't say hello first, he'll say afternoon. You say, yeah, not bad, mate. Are you? And he'll stop for a couple of seconds, have a chat, and then go on his merry way back home or to wherever he's going. You know, but them days are gone, guys. I mean, the days when you could chat with your neighbour over the fence while you burnt your grass in the garden, them days are gone. And they're never coming back. You know, it's a shame, but that's the way it is. I mean, look at people in tower blocks. You know, they all live in the same building but don't know each other. You know, most of them don't know each other, and, you know, but, you know, they're all living pretty much identical lives in an identical building, but they don't know each other. A lot of them don't even know each other. It's weird. You know, it's weird. It really is. It's weird. You know, the way things have gone. I mean, I'd love it to go back to the old ways where people would stand and gossip. You know, I remember, you know, people would stand and gossip over the garden fences. I remember when I was a kid, when, you know, before the school run, you know, all the mums used to walk behind us. We used to all run in front. And all the mums are behind us with a pushchair and a fag in their gob if they had children that needed a pushchair. And they'd be all behind us, and we'd all run off in front, and all you'd hear is the mother shouting, "Watch them roads, you little fuckers," you know, "Wait there," and all this lot. You know, but it's a different world now. I mean, it's a different world, it really is. Yeah, parents had good friends and neighbours over the years. Very lucky, really, in the 70s and 80s. It was lovely. It was a lovely treat to go around and have a cuppa and a cake and put the world to rights. Yeah, it was. You know, the village where I was brought up had 3 big employers, a brickworks, a paper factory and a mine. and everyone worked at one of them. Well, that's right. I mean, all the mothers knew each other. You know, when you know, all the mothers used to walk the kids to school. They all knew each other. So if you did something wrong and one of the other mothers knew, you got grassed up. You know, and all the mothers knew each other. We were all friends with each other. All the kids, we were all friends with each other. We all got on, and you know, all the mothers. If there was an argument, you know, if you went home and told your mother, it got sorted out, or their mother had come round and it gets sorted out. And if you were found to be in the wrong, you got a clip around the ear off your mother and stuff like that. You know, but it's a different world, like I say, guys. It's a different world we're living in. It's different, and it's never going to change. It's only going to get worse, really. You know, and you know, people don't know each other now when they take the kids to school, because you know, the only person I know that walks her kid to school is Courtney upstairs. And that's because Courtney doesn't drive. I reckon if she drove, she'd drive to school. But she walks little Tommy to school every morning, and she's not gone long. You know, she's not gone long. She's gone about 5 or 10 minutes, and she's back, because the school's only over the road pretty much. You know, she's not long gone when she takes him. But at the end of the day, guys, you know, the school run fucked up everything. I mean, why do women need to drive the kids to school when they could get more? You know, if the school's about what, a 15-minute drive, then it's got to be about a 10-minute. It's got to be about a 20-minute walk. Be less than that even. You know, a 15-minute drive could turn into a fucking 10-minute walk, because you don't have to fucking stop at road services like lights and stuff. You know, you don't get pulled up at a Pelican crossing or anything, or zebra. You know, you don't traffic light. You don't get none of that. You just walk. You know, I used to walk Laura to school. You know, when she went to school in the area, I used to walk Laura to school. But when she started going to school out the area, they laid on transport for her so she could get to school and back again. You know, I even took her to school once on a tandem. That was the most embarrassing day of her life. She claimed that she missed the bus, and but she could have got a train there as well, and the train station's only up the road. And she claimed that she missed the bus and missed the train. So I says, right, okay. I had a tandem, so I got my tandem out. I used to have a tandem round the back. It was too big to keep in here. It was chained up round the back so nobody would nick it. And I got the tandem out, and I says, right, I wiped the seats off, and I says, right, I said, get on that. I says, and we'll pedal your fat ass to school. She weren't that fat then. Anyway, so I pedalled her ass to school. We have big yellow school buses. School is too far to walk. Yeah, I know, but America's a big place. You know, I know America's a big place. I mean, a lot of the kids in America drive to school when they get to 17 or whatever, and they can have a license to drive to school. A lot of the American kids, it's different. It's a different world over here, Clarence. You know, it's chalk and cheese. You can't compare it, mate. I know America's bigger than here. You know, and it's a different world altogether. But you know, our school, right, is only, our nearest school is only up the road. Right, now I know people, I won't say who they are, but I know people that actually do the school run, and they could quite easily walk it. Yet they get in a car and drive a couple of 100 yards, or drive about half a mile, if that. You know, why? You know, I mean, I pedalled Laura's ass to school one day on a tandem. And I said to her, and if she didn't pedal, I used to kick her in the shin. And that soon got her pedalling again. And on the way back, a couple of things happened that day. I took her to school, and she begged me. She says, can you let me off at the school gate? I says, no. Or she said, let me off before we get into the school. If I could have pedalled inside and stopped outside her classroom door, I would have done. I pedalled right up to the front door of the school, and I made sure she went in. And she said to me, she says, it was the most embarrassing day of my life, that turning up to school on that. I said, well, you won't miss the bus or the train again, will you? I only compare because it's what you and I do here. Right. You know, well, I suppose there's that. Anyway, and basically at the end of the day, on the way home, this nice blonde woman turned round. She says, excuse me, love. I said, yes, love. She says, where are you going? I says, Brinnington. Oh, she says, I'm going to Brinnington. I said, well, get on the back then. You can help me pedal it. I mean, pedaling a tandem with one on wasn't that difficult. It was just like riding an ordinary bike. But I said, yeah, if you want a lift, you know, you have to earn it by pedaling. So she jumped on and we pedalled all the way up past where I live. And I said, where are you going? So she told me. And she got off outside her house or whatever and went in. She said, thanks. I said, oh, you're welcome, love, no worries. You know. And I cycled back home. It was only a few streets away from me. I cycled back home. And then the telephone rang. It was the social worker. She says, can I ask you, she says, it's Karen here, Karen Inchcliffe. She said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, you may. What is it? I said, yeah, go ahead. She says, I thought I was seeing things. She says, but have I just seen you and Laura going through Bredbury on a tandem? I said, oh, you weren't seeing things. And I told her the story. I said, she kept begging me to let her off. She says, I take it you went all the way to the door. I said, oh, yes. You know, I said, she won't miss the bus or the train again. You know. She said, where'd you get the tandem? I said, bought it off a mate of mine called Charlie. I bought it off him a couple of years ago. I had it for about 2 or 3 years, that tandem. Me and Laura used to go all over the place on it. Charlie and his wife rode to Blackpool on it. I think they did it twice. Rode to Blackpool on it, from Manchester to Blackpool on it. But yeah, I bought it off Charlie. I can't remember how much I paid him for it, but it weren't dear. It wasn't dear. It wasn't a dear bike. You know, no, I didn't charge me a lot for it, is what I mean. You know. But yeah, it's one of them things anyway, guys. I'm going to leave it there, I think. But yeah, how many have we got in anyway, out of curiosity? I'm hoping to get a few more subscribers. Well, we've only got 4 people in, but that doesn't matter. We've had a good time, haven't we, guys? I've enjoyed it. I know you lot have enjoyed it. And, you know, if you've enjoyed it and you're watching it and you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe. And don't forget the electronics channel, the Vintage Audio channel. Anybody who watches that and you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe to that also, and try and get me to 4,000 subscribers before the end of the month. I'm going to shoot off now, guys, because I need a piss. Another thing, I've got some nice frozen Magnums in the freezer. I'm going to watch some YouTube and suck a Magnum. Right, well, I'm glad you all enjoyed it, guys. I enjoy it as well. I think this channel's got big possibilities. And I will see you all on Thursday. Make a note in your mental diaries. Thursday, 6 o'clock, we're here. Live and direct. Absolutely. Like, share, subscribe. Buy me a coffee if you want to. And I will see you Thursday on here. Thank you very much, guys. Bye for now.